Welcome to Dramatic Pause, a Rose Theater podcast. On today's episode, we'll be talking with Matt Gutschick and Trudy Yeates, who have written and created the music for the upcoming world premiere, Penguin Problems. Okay, welcome to another episode of Dramatic Pause, a Rose Theater podcast, and we are so excited because we are going to talk about our first show of the year, Penguin Problems, which was actually a play written by Matt Gutschick, and then Miss Trudy Yeates did the music. And we have both of them here today to talk about that process. So welcome, guys. If you want to just take a second to introduce yourself and kind of what you do at the Rose and how we know you, and then we'll get going. Matt, do you want to start?
Sure. So, hi, I'm Matt, and I am the artistic director at the Rose, which means that I get to work very closely with all of our staff members, but mostly with our production team, the folks that put together a lot of the shows that we do, and then our education team, which includes drama at the Rose and Broadway at the Rose. So the work that we do in schools, as well as the classes and workshops that we offer in out of school time and on the weekends.
And hi, I'm Trudy Yeates, and I moved to Omaha 5 years ago and started working for Broadway at the Rose as a private voice teacher. And then I moved on to teaching group voice lessons as well and musical theater classes with the director of that department, Sue Bouton. So I've had the privilege to work with her and do a lot of different things. I've been musical director for some of the small productions that perform up in the Hitchcock Black Box Theater. So I've had a lot of variety and it's been a lot of fun.
Trudy is very well known around here and the box office loves her. She always comes in with such a big smile, always happy to be here, and we love having her around. So we're super excited to be doing a show that you got to work on. So Matt, do you want to tell me just a little bit about the book and maybe what made you interested in adapting it into a show? And then kind of what made this book seem like it would fit for a musical and how we got Trudy involved?
Sure. So Penguin Problems was written by Jory John, who has quite a following. He wrote a picture book for adults that's about 10 years old, and it's called All My Friends Are Dead, and it's about a dinosaur that survives the major extinction event. And my thinking on this, once he wrote this picture book, which was actually for kids, was that there might be a lot of adults out there that think his work is funny and know it from when he was writing for adults and would be interested in something that he had written for kids. He has a very dry sensibility, and the images are by Lane Smith, who also was the illustrator of a lot of books, but most notably from my own childhood, a book called The True Story of the Three Little Pigs, which we had done an adaptation of a number of years ago. So the mix of sort of Jory John and then Lane Smith kind of drew me in. And when I read it, I found a story that was, deeply funny and kind of an update on Alexander and the Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. If anybody remembers that book from either reading it to their kids or from their own childhoods, this felt like an update of that. It felt like it was a version of that was written for a really contemporary audience. You meet this penguin and the things that he's struggling with are pretty unique to the Arctic. They're not things that a normal kid would struggle with, but I think that they have parallels to the things that really are epic obstacles in children's everyday lives. And so, we'll talk probably a little bit more about what those conflicts are, but it was just a really, really funny book. And I thought that it might translate well to the stage. We've had a lot of fun bringing penguins to the stage in other pieces that we've done, like Madagascar a couple years ago, I think was the most recent example. So this just felt like a really unique perspective. It felt like it was a very bright and in a lot of ways actually inspiring book, even though you've got to pass through the entire day with Mortimer, and he experienced some things while unique to a penguin that are really, really not fun.
And then did you know right away you maybe wanted it to be a musical, or was that something that came out of a process, or?
Oh, sure. So, we, in reading the book, felt like there were a couple of locations and there were a couple of challenges that he deals with. For example, there's a whole moment where he goes underwater and he's trying to fish, but he ends up getting hunted by these kind of goofy looking leopard seals and killer whales. And that was the first sequence in the book that really made me feel like, well, if it's going to be a chase, it might as well be a dance and it might as well be a musical. And so we really thought at that early stage that it made sense to expand this book using the power of music to get us inside Mortimer's head and develop his, even though he's a penguin, his humanity a little bit more. Because if you just read it on the page, just the words that are in the book, it's a series of things that don't go very well and that Mortimer is kind of complaining about. But when you actually open that up in dialogue with other characters that we had to invent and then create some music, it allows the audience to feel not just the sort of funny observations that Mortimer makes, but to also understand and really empathize with him. And so we had wanted Trudy to help us make a musical for a while. She's made music for a long time, and she had shared one of her albums with me, and I thought it was really, really good and showed a lot of flexibility in terms of moving between musical styles, pop, country, blues, and that kind of thing. And so it felt like the variety of her work would really suit this material really well. But most importantly, we talked about a couple of projects and Trudy really gravitated to this. She was really, really invested in the material as soon as she read it and had great ideas for how those songs might make their way to the stage and into the story pretty early on in the conversations. And so she created a couple of songs before we were even, ready to start writing a script, actually. And I think that was a really exciting sign that she was absolutely the right person to partner with to make this.
That is so cool. So, Miss Trudy, will you tell me a little bit about what it's like to write music? What kind of inspires you, and what was exciting about this story to you to make you want to be part of it?
Well, the purpose of music is to evoke emotion in people. That's the purpose of it. And there's so much in this story. There's so many, emotional ups and downs and pieces, and there's so much to write about. And I just saw in reading the book that there were fun songs, there were sad songs, there were silly songs, and that I could utilize, my history and my background with music to incorporate so many different styles of music into this thing. And when I read the book, it's really, Matt did an unbelievable job developing a script for a book that's just based around one character, and the lines are like one line on every page, and it's real short. So, he had his homework to do. But for me, I just had to take the lines that he said, like, I look silly when I waddle. Oh, that's a song. Are you my mother? That's a song. You're exactly where you need to be, the walrus says at the end. That's a song. It just so fell into writing songs that, I could just pick like 8 songs out of the book and just start, writing them. And then some of the other songs developed after Matt and I met, and he showed me the script and we talked through stuff, and another song developed during the workshop. It was a great idea by Michael Miller. So it's just been a fabulous process and a lot of fun, and we're excited to see the results.
Yeah, it's coming so close now. All the fruits. And tell me, how long have you guys been working on this script? How long has this been in development, and sort of what is that process? Trudy talked a little bit about workshops and that kind of thing. And so what is that like to create a script with the Rose?
Well, we got together on this once, you knew it was a go. That was back in 2000, the end of 2018 or the summer of 2018. And that's when the process really started. So go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a fairly quick musical to come to life. As Trudy indicated, we sort of had all the paperwork with the rights holder settled and all the rest of it in the summer of 2018, which meant that kind of by that fall, we were starting to make decisions about what might be programmed in the 2020-2021 season. And I really sat down over I think a couple of weekends and tried to craft some of the narrative, build out some of the other characters. So we created for Mortimer a little sort of pod of friends. So he has Luis, who is his buddy, and Bob, who is also his buddy, and they're very different personalities. Luis is the kind of penguin that loves living in the Arctic. So there's a really great contrast between her and Mortimer's point of view. And then Bob, who was inspired by a trip that I took to the Henry Dorley Zoo to visit the penguins, and I noticed that you'd have some of them standing under like the little slushy machine that they have in the ceiling that kind of cools them down or whatever, and they would just be very, very still and relaxed. But then there was on this particular afternoon, there was this one penguin that was just like doing laps as if he was having just, or she was having just the best time. And they were moving so quickly, they would just like zip through the water and then waddle around in a circle and then get right back in the water. And I just thought it was the cutest thing. So I thought, well, what's that penguin saying over and over and over again? And it seemed like that penguin was just saying like, party, 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 like, come on guys, let's party, party, party. And so we decided to just make a joke of that and have a character who is intelligent and fully communicates with the other characters, but all he says is the word party. That is the only language that he has, even though every line says with that means something different, and that the other characters understand. So we just kind of made a little joke out of that. So it was like kind of finding the character and the way of preserving the tone of the book as it made its way to the stage. And finding the seams where we needed music to support some of the emotional discoveries or some of the events in the story. And that was, I think, where some of the ideas for the songs started to maybe develop a little bit further, where Trudy got maybe even more inspiration to find the places where music helps us tell the story. And so we did a couple of workshops with just the script, and then we did one with the script and the music, where the actors learned all the music ahead of time, and we could kind of come in and have a reading that felt like it was something that would give us a sense of what the musical sounded like, both with text and with music, which was very helpful in terms of the kind of final tune-ups before it goes into rehearsal, which it's in now. And there have been some rewrites that we've done. The way that this process has worked so far is that the director, the choreographer, and the music director are working on their separate sort of parts of the project. And starting next week, we'll start to see how it all fits together. And I suspect that there'll be some places where we'll want to make changes to punch things up, make them a little bit better, or to clarify some of our intentions as writers, that kind of thing. But that's kind of the trajectory that it's been on. And then Trudy, she went and worked with the orchestrator in July. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and what an orchestrator does?
Sure. After Matt decided that we would do a live band on stage, how many pieces would that be? And, how many musicians would that be? So we settled on 5 musicians, which is a drummer, a lead piano player, a guitar player, electric guitar player, a bass player, and then a second keyboard player who could play a synthesizer and do horns, saxophones, flutes, violins. So now that is the job of the arranger, to take the music and take the melody and the chord structure that I designed for the songs, and then write parts for each individual musician. So Scott Schneider and I worked remotely for a long time. We I sent music to him, and then we did Zoom calls and talked it through, and he would play me what he had from his computer, and so it developed. And then I went down, like Matt said, in July to finalize those things that he had already written, and then also to do some underscoring music that was needed to kind of propel scenes or to establish certain moods of the scenes. We made decisions like, well, when would the intro start? Would it start under dialogue, or would it just start after somebody said something and you got the intro and bang, there you go? So we made all those decisions together, and I am very, very excited to hear a live band play this stuff, because it just, it's electrifying. Music doesn't really come to life until that happens for me. I mean, it just embellishes the whole thing and makes it dynamic and interesting, and yeah, it's gonna be great.
That's so cool. I had no idea what an orchestrator does, so I'm so glad you clarified that. That's very neat. And what a cool partnership to have. So for both of you then, this question is kind of just, what are your favorite parts about being involved with this show? What was one moment in this process so far that has really stuck out as a favorite? And then what is something that maybe was a roadblock or difficult, or something that you just had to kind of think through? If there's anything that comes to mind, I'd love to hear both of your opinions.
So I think one of the most powerful experiences so far is hearing the actors who will actually play the roles on stage, read the material for the first time out loud. You started to get a sense of how things are so enhanced by having more collaborators, and having actors who are really good fully embody the things that you want to see happen. You also certainly learn some things that work and some things that don't, some things that aren't necessarily as funny as you thought they were and might need to change, and some things that the actors do that you really want to enhance because it's a strong choice that you think could really give people a chuckle as they're watching the show. So I think that was really, really exciting. And then I think a challenge was, I don't know if this was the biggest challenge, but it was a fun challenge, actually. When we sent the script in for approval, I had a section in there where Mortimer talked about how sharks, one of the predators that, and again, this is not very scary, these are going to be rendered as like painted cutouts in the story, because it's sort of in the book, it's sort of a sillier sequence. And so we're doing that on stage. It's not scary at all, really. But in any event, I had this section where Mortimer was talking about how, sharks don't really, there aren't great white sharks, certainly, in the Arctic, right? And what I was trying to communicate to the audience was that, books sometimes take liberties, right, with actual biology. And the writer of the book, Jory John, I think, interpreted that as something that could be seen as taking a little bit of a swipe at the book. And so obviously that was not my intention. And when we got the notes back from them, I just sort of felt like, oh God, that was just an example of where something totally didn't hit the mark that I was intending for it to, and needed to find a different landing place or a different source of humor, or a different way of teaching kids that sharks aren't actually in the Arctic or whatnot. So but they were very gracious about that, and I had a chance to do a little rewrite where that was pretty quickly fixed. But that was just a unique challenge, and it was really, in a lot of ways, energizing for me, because it means that the writer cares about how the play is. They had a lot of really, really positive things to say. Jory is so excited for this. But I took that as a sign that they, actually read the script, which is great.
That's neat. For me, probably my favorite thing in developing the music was the challenge of writing a song that we hadn't written before, but we took this scene that, one of the scenes that Matt described, where the predators are, chasing Mortimer, the penguin, and it was descriptions of these predators, descriptions of a shark, the Latin name, the this, the that, and very funny dialogue. Um, but uh, but when Michael had the idea to turn it into what's called a patter song, there's some writers by the name of Gilbert and Sullivan who've been writing since like the 1800s, I guess, like Pirates of Penzance and The Mikado and some of these musicals. They've been around for hundreds of years. Um, when he had that idea, I hadn't had any exposure really to that kind of music or to writing it. So I, I found it very electrifying, and it was one of my favorite things to write because I had this dialogue of Matt's, and it's so intricate, and there's so much detail, and then I had to put it in this da 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 kind of a style and make it rhyme. So I remember that night staying up till midnight and just writing and writing and writing and writing and writing and getting up the next day and writing music to it. That was one of my favorite things that came together. And one of the most challenging and most difficult things for me in terms of the songs, I knew that there needed to be a song called Are You My Mother? And the penguin just goes around asking, are you my mother? And gets a little answer, are you my mother? Are you my mother? Well, what are you going to write about? You know, what? Okay, that's fine. Are you my mother? But what else was the penguin going to say? So I struggled with it for weeks and finally came up with this idea that maybe there are unique features that he has that a mother or a father would recognize because he's looking for his parents. And for instance, if you just had like, super strong legs and, your parents knew that, or if you had a mole, right here and your parents would know that, or you had, certain color eyes that were recognizable, or, a certain kind of walk or whatever. So that's what I wrote into this song, Are You My Mother? And then I guess I had fun with that, but the challenge was coming up with the idea of where to go with it and how to turn it into a song.
Well, it sounds like both of you guys really had some fun challenges that you clearly overcame. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be a really great show. And we're in rehearsals now. It's not long until it opens, September 11th. It's going to be the first show of the year for the Rose. And so once it finally makes it to the stage, is there a particular scene or a particular thing that you're really looking forward to after that first performance on the stage?
We're going to hear this probably before the first performance in Tech Week, but I can't wait to hear the arrangements, with the live band. And the other thing that I've really been looking forward to through the whole process in writing the songs, because I do dance as well, and I can't wait to see the choreography on that stage. I mean, it's one thing to just plow through it and everybody's learning it in rehearsals, but to see it on the stage with lighting, with the set, with the band, I can't wait for that part. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, there's a sequence in the show where after Mortimer escapes being underwater with the predators, he rejoins his friends and he's out of breath, but he's trying to communicate to his friends what the experience was that he just had. And they think he's playing a game of Pictionary, so he can't really like breathe as he's catching his breath. And so he's acting all these things out, and they're really, really bad guessers. So I'm excited to see what that scene looks like, because I think I don't know, to me in real life, games like that are really, really funny, particularly because the guessers get so energized and they want to make guesses with such urgency, and sometimes the guesses are so way off base from what is trying to be communicated in a game like Pictionary that I'm just excited to see what the actors have come up with that.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we're super excited to see this show at the Rose, and If you guys don't have tickets already, single tickets went on sale August 14th, and you can still join as a member of the Rose. You can join if you're bringing 4 people to a show. It's actually cheaper to be a member and see all 4 shows this year than it is to just buy the single ticket. But we sincerely hope that you'll come out to see Penguin Problems. We're so excited to have this show on stage. And I want to thank you guys so much for joining us today to just talk about this lovely work that you guys have created for us. We're so looking forward to seeing it. Thank you again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We'll see you again soon.